Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's shiur, which is called "When Was the World Created? When Will Redemption Come?" What is the possible connection between when the world was created and when will redemption come? We are about soon to celebrate and read Parashat HaChodesh, Shabbat HaChodesh, where we speak about the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, by which the calendar of the Jewish people is based upon. And of course, this took place in the land of Egypt, and it was a very important prelude to redemption. The pasuk reads as follows: "Vayomer Hashem el Moshe," and God spoke to Moshe, "Ve'el Aharon," and to Aharon, "Be'eretz Mitzrayim lemor," in the land of Israel, saying, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim." This Chodesh, this new month, the month of Nisan, the month that the Jewish people will be redeemed from Egypt. This is Rishon hu lachem lechodshei hashana. It is the first month of all the subsequent months. Meaning to say that the calendar is determined upon the month of Nisan. And we know that the Torah calls the month of Tishrei the seventh month. Why the seventh month? Because Nisan is the first month, and Iyar second, etc. Like the Torah calls it, the first, second, third. The Torah does not give it names. It calls it the first, the second month, the third, the seventh, etc. So Nisan is called the first month of the year, and from there on begins the Jewish calendar. What is the meaning of it? What is the significance of it? And why was it revealed to the Jewish people in the land of Egypt? Vayomer Hashem Moshe ve'Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim. This mitzvah was revealed to the Jewish people in Eretz Mitzrayim, the land of Egypt. What is the significance of that? Then it says, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodashim." It is a month for you. It is a renewal for you. Chodesh does not only mean month, but it means Hidush, means renewal for you. What is the significance of this? In order to best appreciate this, we have to go to the very beginning of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. Rashi asks a very simple question. Torah, the whole Torah milashon hora'ah. Torah is called Torah because it comes to teach us God's law, God's will. The greatest thing that a Jew can do is study Torah and fulfill the divine will, the divine commandments. Ultimately, the Torah is God's guidelines for us to come close to Him. The greatest occurrence in our history was the giving of the Torah and the mitzvot. And therefore Rashi says off the bat, the great commentary says right off the bat, straight away, "Lo haya tzarich lathil et haTorah ela me'chodesh hazeh lachem." Really, the Torah should have started from the very first mitzvah. And that is in Parashat Bo. HaChodesh hazeh lachem, the mitzvah that teaches us how to set the calendar and how to proclaim the new moon. The calendar, time, proclaiming time, sanctifying time, that is the mitzvah. First of all, why is that the very first mitzvah? And Rashi clearly says that Torah and everything about the Torah is about God's mitzvot, God's commandments. And therefore he says that the Torah should have commenced with not Bereshit, the history of the world, but rather the Torah should have commenced with the mitzvah, because that's what it's ultimately about. Yet it did not commence with that, it commenced with Bereshit, the beginning, the creation. And Rashi gives a reason why. To empower the Jewish nation to be able to conquer the land. And I feel that there is a connection between the two. The conquering of the land of Israel, and not only the conquering of the land of Israel, but the conquering the concept of Eretz, or artsiyut, or materialism, or physicality, through specifically time. If there is a calendar, and there is a first month and a second month and a third month and a fourth month, why is Nisan the first? Why not Tishrei, the first month of the Hebrew calendar? We follow, our calendar follows that Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah. Tishrei is the new year, at least for years. And why is it not that we follow that Tishrei should be the first month? Why is Nisan the first month? If God then revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron that Nisan is the first month, comes to teach us that it's seemingly that the Jewish people or the world did not follow Nisan as the first month. It's a Hidush. God revealed himself to Moshe and Aaron and told them this is the first month of the year. From here it's mashma, from here it seems that that wasn't the case, that they must have, the whole world must have followed, and particularly the Jewish people, as small as they were at the time, followed the calendar in accordance with Rosh Hashanah, Tishrei. Seemingly. Comes Hashem and says, no, from this point on, the first month, and the calendar will be ordained through Nisan, through the month of Nisan. Why Nisan? We know that the sages tell us that the three regalim, the three festivals, correspond to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And there are 12 months of the year, that they are also semi or quasi festivals. Were it not for the sin of the golden calf, every month would have been a festival, particular to the 12 tribes of Israel. And the 12 months correspond to the 12 tribes of Israel. We also know that there are 12 configurations how we write God's name for each one of the months. Whether we write it Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey in its normal order, whether we write it the other way around, Hey and Vav and Hey and Yud, or other configurations, Yud and Vav and Hey, etc., etc. So generally there are 12 ways how we write it, and each one depicts a different type of revelation that is occurring through that month and is connected to a different tribe. I will not speak about it this time, but the month of Nisan is connected to the tribe of Yehuda. But we'll leave that for another time. The numerical value of Chodesh is 312. Chodesh, which means the new month. And there are 12 new months of the year corresponding to the 12 tribes of Israel. Each one of those months has a different configuration of God's name, of the tetragrammaton name of Yud and Hay and Vav and Hay. So let's take the tetragrammaton name. What is the numerical value of the tetragrammaton name? 26, correct? Yud is 10, Hay is 5, Vav is 6, Hay is 5, altogether 26. So there are 12 such configurations that correspond to the 12 tribes of Israel, times that by 26 of the name of God. Even though they are written in different order, they still come to the numerics of 26, right? Altogether comes to how much? 312, which is exact numerical value of Chodesh, of month, which contains within it all of the configurations of God's name. Chodesh Hazeh Lachem, this new month, this new moon, this new month of Nisan contains within it all of the configurations of God's name, which will be in the future. And indeed, we know that the month of Nisan, the way the letters of God's name are spelt out in the month of Nisan is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey in the normal order of God's name, which we'll speak about it a little bit later. We have already discussed on a previous shiur the concept of time, place, time, and spirit. Olam, Shana, Nefesh. Which means to say that the Holy Arizal teaches us that we are empowered to be able to bring sanctity and holiness to time and place. How? Through our nefesh. Every single one of us has a godly spark. And this godly spark is empowered to be able to sanctify time. In my opinion, I may have seen this, I can't remember, but time is more all-encompassing than place. Place is very specific, but time is much more encompassing. Time is something that is everywhere and at every time. Whereas place, Yerushalayim is only in Yerushalayim. The Temple Mount is only in the Temple Mount. The synagogue is only in the synagogue. The Holy of Holies is only in the Holy of Holies. But time is all-encompassing. And therefore, if we are able to sanctify time, then that empowers us, in my opinion at least, to sanctify place. And maybe this is what Rashi is hinting to. Really, the Torah should have started with the Chodesh Hazeh Lachem, the mitzvah of the new moon, which is the ability, the empowerment to sanctify time. Because if we sanctify time, we are then able to sanctify place. Because Rashi says the reason why God told us the history before the mitzvot is because he empowered the Jewish people to have a given answer to the world, that God created the world. And God created the world, and he created the land of Israel, and he gave it, and he took it, and he gave it to whoever he so desired. And it is recorded in the Torah that he gave the Torah to the land of Israel to the Jewish people. But really the two are intertwined. Elamai. But why didn't the Torah start with a Chodesh Hazeh Lachem? Because God, first of all, empowers us. He sanctified us. By sanctifying us, and then giving us and empowering us and telling us, Koach, Ma'asav, Higid Le'amo. Higid Le'amo means he drew down his power of creation, and even more so the purpose of creation. We contain the purpose of creation. We fulfill the purpose of creation, as we will soon see. And therefore, since we are the purpose of creation, God empowered us to sanctify time and then place. And that is why that is the first mitzvah. Only later on, we have the rest of the mitzvot. Amongst them is the mitzvah Kivush Eretz Yisrael, of conquering the land of Israel, settling in the land of Israel. We find this in regards to God sanctified Shabbat, but he empowered us to sanctify the new moon, the months and the festivals. Since the festivals, the months and the festivals are connected to the forefathers and to the 12 tribes, so God empowered us by teaching us how to sanctify the new moon. That's why it says, Mekadesh Amo Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, Kadesh Amo Yisrael, ve'azmanim. God, when we say the Kiddush on and the bracha in the prayers on the festivals, we say, God, we acknowledge you, we bless your name for sanctifying the Jewish nation and the festivals. Why? Why in that order? Because God empowered us. By empowering us, we then have the ability to sanctify time. This wasn't the case in regards to Shabbat. When we make Kiddush or when we pray and it's a festival and Shabbat, what's the order we say? Baruch Hashem, Mekadesh Shabbat. First we say God who sanctified Shabbat, Amo Yisrael, the Jewish people, Ve'hazmanim, and the time. Why? Because God sanctified the Shabbat. We didn't sanctify Shabbat. God sanctified when he created the world, and he rested on the seventh day, and he sanctified the Shabbat. So therefore, that's why on Shabbat we say, God, you sanctified the Shabbat. Because we don't sanctify the Shabbat. God sanctified it. Mekadesha v'kayama. God sanctified it, and it endures forever, that sanctity. Whereas the festivals depended upon us. When we proclaim the new moon, when God created the world, he created 7 days. And that order continues. But when God empowered us to proclaim the new moon, when we proclaim the new moon will be when Pesach will be, when Shavuot will be, when Rosh Hashanah will be, when Yom Kippur will be. Will this be a full month? Will this be a non-full month? Will it be a 29-day month? Will it be a 30-day month? Because we know that the cycle of the moon is 29 and a half days. Cannot have a half day. So sometimes, depending on how they sight the moon, will depend whether the Beit Din will proclaim the new month on the 29th, after 29th, or at the 29th. In other words, the new moon after 29 days or after 30 days. Now we have a set calendar that we follow because we no longer have the Sanhedrin. So God empowered us, and by empowering us to proclaim time and to sanctify time, we are now empowered to sanctify place, which is more specific. Time is more encompassing. And I believe that is the connection between what Rashi says, that God empowered us, first of all. He taught the Jewish people the power and gave him that power through teaching that he created the world. And he empowered us. And by understanding that, which is nefesh, then we can sanctify time. And when we sanctify time, we can sanctify place. And this is very important because the order of things is that God, first of all, created the concept of world, of worlds in general, and then time, and then soul. So we work the other way around. The soul sanctifies time, and then the world, it's just and place. The word, says the Holy Arizal, Shana, is the same numerical value, which Shana is Shinui, means time, is the same numerical value as Sfira, which means the Sfirot, the 10 emanations. It's just a different word for it. The emanations are really Shinuyim, are differentiations in the way God reveals himself. On a higher level, they are emanations. On a lower level, it's time, etc. So why then indeed did God command this commandment, which is so precious and so important, that Rashi says that the whole Torah should have commenced with this mitzvah? And why indeed is this the first mitzvah? And why was it then, if it's so central, revealed to us in the land of Egypt? Because even though that the land of Egypt was ervat haaretz, even though the land of Egypt was an immodest land, was an immoral land, even though that the land of Egypt represented our lowliness, nonetheless, God revealed it in the most lowest of lands, in the most immodest of lands, to teach us that at any moment, a Jew can find renewal, can renew himself. Any moment, a person can totally revitalize himself, can totally change himself from one spectrum to another spectrum. Even though that the Jewish people fell into the 49 levels of impurity. But in an instant, they can change that. And that is the reason why God revealed the capacity to sanctify time, to pull ourselves from the impurity of the land of Egypt in the land of Egypt. The whole concept of Hidush, of Chodesh, of renewal, specifically in the land of Israel. And that's why Chodesh Lachem, God revealed it to you, teaching us that God empowered us, no matter where we are, no matter which land we are, no matter which place we find ourselves, no matter which spiritual situation we find ourselves, we can always find renewal. We can always renew ourselves because we have it within ourselves, but God already sanctified us. And if He sanctified us, then we're able to sanctify both time and place. And time and place will no longer be a limitation. And that's why, going back to Rashi, what does Rashi say? Rashi says that God empowered us to lichvosh at Eretz Yisrael, to conquer Eretz Yisrael. Remember, Eretz Yisrael is not only a place, but it's a concept. Eretz, Arziut means the materialism of the world. Lichvosh means to say that we are empowered to conquer the earthiness of the world, the materialism of the world. We have the ability to be able to conquer. Nisan, of course, falls in Chodesh HaAviv, as we read in the Torah. HaAviv, the word Aviv, contains the two words. Aviv is Av, Yud Bet. Yud Bet is 12, which is the 12 months, and Av is the father of all of the 12 months. So Chodesh Nisan is the father, or is the beginning of all of the 12 months. Why is that? Because it represents the capacity to overpower the limitations, lichvosh, to conquer the limitations, even if those limitations are Egypt, and we know the word Mitzrayim is Metzarim, which means limitations. This is why it's the first mitzvah. Because every mitzvah has limitations, every mitzvah has difficulties. Every mitzvah we have to conquer something to be able to fulfill it properly. We have to conquer the evil inclination. We have to conquer the limitations of time or place, wherever we may be. And therefore, this is the reason why this is the first mitzvah. And this is the reason why it was revealed to us in the land of Israel. And this is why the whole calendar follows this. And that's why this is the head of the calendar. Like Yehudah is the head of the tribes of Israel, so too, he's the leader, he's the king. So too, this is the king, the leader, the Av, the father of all months. And that is why the sages say that Israel, monim lalvana vedomim lalvana. The Jewish people not only count in accordance with the sun, with the moon, but also are similar to the moon, that they wane and they grow. They wane and they grow. There always this concept of renewal. Even though that we may fall, we always have the power to bounce back and to renew ourselves. And this is the important message that I believe Rashi is telling us, that the whole Torah should have started with this mitzvah. And this is the first mitzvah to tell us that we have the ability to renew, we have the ability to overcome any limitations. Just a very interesting thing before we get into a little bit deeper. We know that Shabbat Mevarchim is the Shabbat that precedes the new moon. So let's say there's a new moon, there's a Rosh Chodesh on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday. The Shabbat before is called Shabbat Mevarchim, the Shabbat that we bless the new moon. We proclaim when the new moon, we announce, we make a very special blessing. On Tuesday is Rosh Chodesh. The new moon will be sighted in such and such an hour, will be seen and revealed in such and such an hour, and Rosh Chodesh will be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever it is. The Shabbat beforehand is called Shabbat Mevarchim. And of course, before Nisan, it's called Shabbat HaChodesh. So Shabbat prior to Nisan, the Shabbat before Nisan, we read a special portion, the portion of the mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon, and we have a special name. Not only is it Shabbat Mevarchim, it's called Shabbat HaChodesh, Shabbat of the month, of the new month, which is the month of Nisan. So the Zohar says that Shabbat is called Yoma Denishmata, the day of the soul. And Minei Mitbarchin Kulho Yomin. The Zohar says that all the subsequent days are blessed from the Shabbat. So therefore, whatever comes in subsequent days after the Shabbat is blessed. If it's Rosh Chodesh included, then obviously it's also blessed. Just a small remez, a small hint to all of this. Which way do we sanctify the Shabbat? We sanctify the Shabbat through Kiddush, correct? Zachor, we remember the Shabbat through making Kiddush. The sages instituted by making Kiddush. The words, sanctifying it through words, but we make Kiddush. If you don't have wine, you can sanctify it, make Kiddush on lechem, on challah, on lechem. Even if you have wine, you should still have lechem, because we have a seudah. We're obligated to have a seudah, a meal on Shabbat, and a meal is always with bread. So, the word kos yain, is 156. The numerical value of Kiddush, a cup of wine, is 156. Lechem, what's the significance of 156? 156, I'll tell you in a minute. Lechem is 78. We have, how many halot do we have on Shabbat? 2. So 2 lechem, 2 times 78 equals 156. So the 2 lechem, shnei lechem, equals 156. Kos yain equals 156. Altogether, 156 plus 156, 312. 312, we said, is the numerical value of Chodesh. Why do we bless the Chodesh, the coming month, on Shabbat? Why is there a concept of Shabbat Mevarchim? Shabbat, that we bless the new month, the new moon, on Shabbat, because Shabbat itself contains within it the ability to bless the coming month, which is, and we said before, the Chodesh, the month, is 12 times 26 equals 312. They are the configurations of how we write God's name. Now, let's take this a step further, which is the topic of our shiur. When was the world created, and when will redemption come? So there's a famous mahloket, dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua in Gemara, Mesechet Rosh Hashanah, page 10. There, amongst many things that's listed, the Gemara lists in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehuda, when did certain occurrences occur? When was Abraham born? When was Yitzhak born? When, etc. When was Sarah remembered? When was the world created? So Rabbi Eliezer says the world was created in the month of Tishrei. Rabbi Yoshua says no, the world was created in the month of Nisan. Rabbi Chaim Vital, who was the star disciple of the Holy Arizal and wrote down his work, asks an obvious question. In Shara Kavanot, in Ma'amar Rosh Hashanah, he asks the obvious question: how can there be dispute when the world was created? Tosfot in the Gemara, Rabbeinu Tam says that Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim hayim. Both these and these are the words of the living God. One refers to the concept of conception, and one refers to the concept of birth. When was the world conceived? In other words, in thought. When did God arouse it in his thought? In fact, that's what Rabbeinu Tam says. The Ben Ish Hai quotes Mekubalim that say what I just said now. I'll repeat it again in a second. Rabbeinu Tam says that one holds that this was when the world was aroused in thought. The other holds this is an actual birth of the world. In other words, they're in agreement. It's not that they dispute that Rosh Hashanah, that the creation of the world or the creation of man is in the month of Tishrei. The focus, what's the focus? What's the main focus of creation? Is it the original thought, primordial thought, or is it the action, the actual concept, which is higher? We know that thought precedes action. The Arizal says that they're talking about different concepts. They both agree that the world was created in Elul and Adam, man was created in Tishrei. But the difference, the dispute is that one is speaking about Behitzoniyut, the externals, and one is speaking about Pnimiyut. Rabbi Eliezer is referring to the externals, the actual physical dimension of the world. The world at large, the body, if you would like, to use different words. And Rabbi Yeshua is referring to the spirit, the soul, the inner, or perhaps even if we can word it differently, the purpose of creation, the soul of creation. The world itself, the physicality, the physical dimension of place and etc. was created in Tishrei. And that's an important consideration. The body, so to speak, was created in Tishrei. That's an important thing. That's what God wants. God wants that there should be a soul in the body. But the world has to have a purpose. And that purpose was born in Nisan. That was when the Jewish people were born as a nation. They brought purpose to the world. Remember that we said that the way God's name is written and the intention that we have on Rosh Chodesh in the month of Nisan is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, and we have when we meditate upon that, we meditate upon the verse Yismehu Hashamayim V'Tagel Haaretz, and the first letter of those 4 words of that verse, which means Yismehu Hashamayim, that the heavens rejoice, V'Tagel Haaretz, and the land be glad, is the first letter of each of that verse is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, God's name. Who joins the heaven and earth? Who joins the purpose of creation and creation? Who joins the body and the soul? The Jewish people. Who were given the Torah, were given the mitzvot, who were empowered to sanctify time and then place. And that's why the month of Nisan is significant. According to Rabbi Yoshua, he says that the world was created in the month of Nisan, means to say, not that the physical world, but the purpose of creation. And also the most defining factor of divine revelation, i.e. in a more direct way, because God's name is revealed in a very direct way in the month of Nisan, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, and that name in that way, written in this particular order, is connected to divine mercy. Whereas the month of Tishrei is more connected to the concept of judgment, where the world is judged, where we have to, so to speak, justify our existence in the world. Nisan is a time of revelation, godly revelation. It's a time of miracles. Nisen, Nisim, the Gemara says that Nisan has 2 nuns. Nisan. And contained within this word Nisan, the month of Nisan, is Nes. So the Gemara says Nisen, Nisim, it's a month of miraculous miracles. Miracles in plural, Nisen, Nisim. It's a time of divine revelation. The time of Tishrei is a time of contraction. In fact, to create the world, God had to contract himself in order to create the natural order, nature. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. The name Elohim is the numerical value of Hateva, nature, 86. The word Hateva, nature, belies, hides godliness. That is the month of Nisan, when nature was created. Whereas the month of Nisan is a time of revelation. Miracles happened. Godliness was evident, was clear. The month of Tishrei is a time where God contracted himself in order to hide himself in nature. And that's the name of Elohim rather than the name of Tetragrammaton name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, the Tetragrammaton name. And specifically in that order. So the Arizal explains to us that they are in agreement, that they're focusing on different aspects of creation. And each one has an argument. Rabbi Eliezer also has a very powerful argument, but right now I don't want to focus on Rabbi Eliezer because I'm focusing on the month of Nisan and the advantage of the month of Nisan and the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. Time of revelation. Remember that our sages teach us, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and earth. The name Elohim is a name that is associated with judgment and concealment, which means, B'tchila ala b'machshava livro et ha'olam b'midat hadin. God wanted to create the world with the attribute of judgment, justice, that we should earn our keep. That's the purpose. We should earn our keep. We should not need to rely on divine mercy. But it's impossible for the world to withstand pure judgment. And so God appendixed divine mercy, that there should be mercy, should be ability for tshuva, for repentance, etc., etc. But really, the world, as it was created, at least in the initial moments, is the concept of concealment. Judgment is concealment. Measure. Judgment means to measure, to judge how much energy is required in every place and every aspect of creation. That's the attribute of judgment. Measure is concealment. And that is really the thrust of creation. Nisan, the thrust of Nisan is revelation. So Rabbi Eliezer is focusing more the concept of judgment, that we have to be deserving, we have to earn our keep. Rabbi Yoshua is focusing more on the concept of divine revelation, divine grace, kindness, and mercy, because we are his people, no matter what. And this is also reflected in another dispute. There's 3 disputes that I want to bring here between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that Betishrei Benisan Nigalu, in the month of Nisan, the Jewish people were redeemed out of Egypt. Ubetishrei Atidim Lehigael, but in Tishrei, the Jewish people are destined to be redeemed. That's his opinion. So his opinion is, the world was created in Tishrei, and the world will be redeemed in the month of Tishrei. What does it mean now? We know that he's not talking about just about time and months and names, but he's talking about a concept. Just like the world was created with order, with judgment, and that we should earn our keep and be deserving, because there's no greater revelation that we can draw down to the world, or when we overpower our limitations and our evil inclination and our deserving of godliness. And so too, he says the redemption is going to come in the same way. Not in a miraculous way where God overcame the order of things, even though we may not have been totally deserving. God made spectacular miracles. No, it's going to come in an orderly fashion, and we need to be deserving of it. In an orderly fashion, in the way of nature. Rabbi Yoshua says, Ben Nisan Nigalu, in the month of Nisan, the Jewish people were redeemed, as we know, Pesach. Uben Nisan Atidin Ligael, and Nisan, the Jewish people are destined to be redeemed. So he holds, just as the world was created in Nisan, i.e., when the Jewish people, when he means to say the world was created, means to say the purpose. We will continually be at the center of creation and its purpose. The purpose of creation, the purpose of its redemption. And we will be redeemed through miraculous ways. So they are focusing on 2 different styles of the service of God. It's almost like, we have mitzvah taseh, mitzvah lo taseh. You know how we have positive commandments and we have negative commandments. Some people are more veered towards the positive things. Ask him to do something, the negative, to do something, or go out and do mitzvah. They're proactive. Some people are not so proactive. Some people are very careful and frugal and cautious. And obviously, we have to have both styles. But what's the focus? So the focus of Lo Ta'aseh is not to desecrate, not to damage the world. God gave us commandments to abstain from. There's certain things that we cannot elevate. It's non-kosher food, we cannot elevate it, so we can't eat it. Our objective really is to be proactive. It's to sanctify the world, uplift the world. Certain things are entrenched in impurity, in the husks of impurity, that cannot be uplifted right now. And the only way to uplift it is by uplifting that which is permitted. Because the way it works is holiness, and then there is a intermediate energy called klipat noga, a translucent husk or impurity. And then there's shlosha klipot atmeot, corresponding to the three expressions in the vision of Yehezkel, Ruach Sarah, etc., Esh, fire, and etc. These refer to the three impurities. So where do the impurities get their energy from? They can't get it directly from godliness. It's two polar opposites. They get it from the intermediary, which is what's called klipat noga, the translucent klipa, translucent husk. This translucent husk is everything that is the energy of all of that which is permitted in the world. It can turn into, God forbid, impurity, or it can be uplifted into holiness. If we use that energy first of all, it's all that which is permitted, kosher food, etc., nothing that is associated with sin. And then when we take that energy of this physical world and we use it for mitzvah, we uplift it. If we remove the whole world and our whole dependency on materialism, then no longer the impurity can have any energy. They cannot, yonek, how do you say yonek? They cannot suckle any energy anymore. So they automatically will disappear. Yevula hamavet lanetzach. Death will disappear forever. Impurity will disappear. It'll disappear on its own as long as we don't give it energy. If we feed it, it lives. If we starve it, it'll die. So this is the intermediate energy called klipat noga. So our objective really is to be proactive. Draw down godliness in the world through the 248 mitzvot. And keep away and don't ruin. But predominantly our focus is the 248. Ramah, 248 mitzvot. Because our objective is to draw down godliness in the world, to utilize everything in this world for positivity, and automatically that positive light will automatically cause, there's enough light in the world, will cause the darkness to disappear. Interesting to note that Ahodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim, this verse that speaks about Nisan as being the month of all months, the head of all heads of all months. So the first letter of each of those words, Ahodesh Hey, Hazeh Hey, Lachem Lamed, Rosh is Resh, and Hodashim is Het, equals 248. So the focus of Rabbi Yeshua is more in the positive. Hesed, Rahamim, mercy, the purpose of creation. Rabbi Eliezer could be said that you have to be deserving, you have to be careful not to ruin the world, not to taint the world. Don't ruin what you were given. Don't ruin the world. Perhaps that's his focus. So Tishrei is a time of din, of judgment. And judgment is more associated with the negative commandments. Don't sin. Don't do this. Don't do that. That's judgment. The positive commandments is more associated with the month of Nisan. Now, this is also connected to the concept of redemption. Redemption will come, according to Rabbi Eliezer, one can argue and say, by not ruining the world, by being deserving. According to Rabbi Yeshua, it's the positive, the proactive, which is more symbolized by the month of Nisan. So their arguments is more in concept, in spiritual terms. But I want to draw your attention to another dispute. This is the third dispute. And they're all tied in between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. There, it's a different Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin. There the Gemara says as follows. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Im Yisrael osim tshuva, if the Jewish people do tshuva, do repentance, in other words, fix all the bad stuff, rectify any bad stuff that we've done, nigalim, we will be redeemed. V'im lav, lo nigalim. If not, we will not be redeemed, God forbid. That's what Rabbi Eliezer holds. Rabbi Yoshua says that God will cause us to be aroused. We will do tshuva, but we will do tshuva because even if, God forbid, we don't do it on our own, God will arouse us to do tshuva, i.e. the month of Nisan, which has got to do with God took the Jewish people out of Egypt. The month of Tishrei is indicative and symbolic of we are crowning God, we are coronating God, we are doing tshuva, we are repenting, we are coming towards God. The month of Nisan is God is coming towards us. On the month of Elul and Tishrei, it's Ani ledodi vedodili, I am to my beloved. I initiate, and then dodili, and God is to me. My beloved is to me. But in the month of Nisan, it's the other way around. Dodili vani lo. God, my beloved, is to me, and I am to him. Which means that God is showing us his mercy. God is showing us his face. And by revealing himself, just as he did in Egypt, it caused the Jewish people to be uplifted. So too God will do so again in the final redemption. And when they're saying the month of Nisan, it means to say the concept of what Nisan symbolizes. Like Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Meir says, Ben kach u ben kach banim. No matter what we look at, there are different verses. Just being very brief, Rabbi Meir holds, Ben kach u ben kach, whether we are on the right side or whether we are not the right side, we are always called banim, God's children. And God will always have mercy upon us. And the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. And so too, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua is ben kach u ben kach. Doesn't matter, no matter what happens, God will always redeem us. Because we are his people. And there is always a redeemable concept to us. There's always that part of us that can be redeemed, that can never be extinguished. And that is reflected in the month of Nisan. And just as God took us out of Egypt, even though we were not deserving, Pasach, God, so to speak, delayed. God jumped over the normal order of things, that we should be deserving. And even if we were not so deserving, so to speak, there is a redeeming quality to us always. And it is that redeeming quality that God saw within us, and that we too have the ability to, no matter how low that we sink, that we are able to climb out of. And that is the mitzvah that God gave us in the land of Egypt. And that is why that is the first mitzvah of the whole Torah. And if we're able to learn that lesson, that empowers us to then conquer the Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, but also conquer Artziut, the materialism of the world. The maskana is that in the debate between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer shatak. Rabbi Eliezer didn't answer back. And usually the understanding is shtika koda'ah. When someone is silent, it means to say that he acknowledges, he agrees. So it would seem that according to Rabbi Eliezer, even though his whole focus, it's like the difference between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai was very strict, and Bet Hillel was very lenient. It says that in the time of, until the coming of Mashiach, we follow the opinion predominantly of Bet Shammai. Because it's, Bet Hillel, I beg your pardon. Because it's more merciful, it's more, takes into consideration, the humanity of an individual. But when Mashiach comes, and there is no more evil inclination, no more things that entice us and leads us away, then the halakha will follow Bet Shammai, the more strict of you. One can borrow this concept to the difference between the Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbi Yeshua. That Bet Shammai being more strict, meaning to say that is the order of things. That is how God created the world, and we should not mess up. Bet Shammai is more lenient, takes into consideration the humanity. God knows, God created us with failings. And that's why he's more lenient. And Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim hayim. Both of them are the words of the living God, and both of them have a different focus. Because both of them have a different style of service of God. Like the difference between Abraham and Yitzhak. Abraham was pure kindness. Yitzhak was pure. Unfaltering. Abraham was understanding of people. He welcomed foreigners, he welcomed idol worshippers to his home, trying to direct them and uplift them. Yitzhak was, so to speak, severe, was pure, like olat mima, like a pure sacrifice that had no blemish whatsoever. That's why Yitzhak was not allowed to leave Eretz Israel. He was too holy, too pure. The foreign lands weren't for him. Yaakov, that was in the middle of the two, was able to go out of the land of Israel. So this is the difference between the two. When the world was created and when redemption will come will be dependent upon the outlook of those two mindsets. But it seems that the prevailing concept or opinion is that of Rabbi Yoshua, because even Rabbi Eliezer was quiet at the end of the argument. Which means no matter what, God will redeem us speedily, Bezrat Hashem. There'll always be this redeeming quality to us, that God will redeem us. And that is why this mitzvah is a very important mitzvah. It teaches us this concept that no matter what, even in the land of Egypt, we are redeemable. Even in the land of Egypt, we are redeemable. Even in the land of Egypt, we have this spark of holiness that could be redeemed. Just as a finale, it says in Tehillim a very interesting thing. It says that God took us out of Egypt like one would, like al kanfei nesharim, like a eagle takes its young on its shoulders. Rashi explains why on the shoulders, because the eagle flies very, very high. All the other birds hold their young. Why? Because they're afraid that the eagle or another bird will attack it and take it, to let it attack itself. The eagle is the highest flying bird, so nobody can attack the bird, its baby, from up top. It's only the human being that could shoot it with an arrow. So the nesher says, the eagle says, better shoot me, not my young. That's how it protects its young. Rabbi Levi Sank Berditchev says a very beautiful thing. So God compared him redeeming us like a nesher, like an eagle would take its young, right? I will lift you up I will bear you like on the wings of an eagle. Rabbi Levi Sank Berditchev says a beautiful thing. He quotes a pasuk in Tehillim, chapter Kuf Gimel 103. Tithadesh kanesher ne'uraichi. Your youth will be renewed like a nesher, like an eagle. First of all, we know that God calls the Jewish people, he says, Zacharti lach hesed ne'uraich. God will always look favorably upon the Jewish people and recall and remember the kindness of our ne'uraich, of our youth. What happened? When you were born, when you were youth, when you were a young nation, and just bought a fledgling nation, a new nation, you went after me. In an unsown land. You followed me with full faith. God will never forget that, so to speak, for us. That's an unbelievable merit that never be forgotten. In our youth, in our birth of our nation, the youth of our nation. Tithadesh kanesher ne'uraichi, one can join the two concepts. Ne'uraichi, when we were a youth, Tithadesh, we will always be renewed like a nesher, like that of an eagle. Remember, God bore us on an eagle. What's the concept of an eagle? The concept of an eagle is that it sheds its feathers and emits new feathers. That's the quality of, what the commentaries say about the eagle, that it renews itself. So to the Jewish people, Ne'uraich, when you were in Egypt, in an impure land, in an immodest land, Tithadesh kanesher ne'uraichi, you had the power and the ability to renew yourself. And that's why it says that God bore us on the wings of an eagle. Why wings of an eagle? Out of all of the things in the world, wings of an eagle, Rashi explained one reason, but the other reason is because an eagle has the ability to renew itself. Tithadesh means to renew itself. And that's why the mitzvah of the time of sanctifying time was revealed. That's the first mitzvah. And that's very significant if it's the first mitzvah. It means to say all of the mitzvot take on that tone. And secondly, in the land of Israel, in the land of Egypt, that we have the ability to renew ourselves, specifically in the land of Egypt, and that Nisan is a predominant month. It's the first of all month. It's a month that spells out God's name in the most merciful, the most kind way. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey refers to revelation, refers to divine mercy, refers to miracles, and that sets the tone for all of the other months. All of the festivals. Okay. Are there any questions? We'll stop here.